Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. In the frame of the Festival dello Sviluppo Sostenibile 2020, promoted by Network Civil Society ASviS, I would like to present the Italian experience in Maio. It's an area of Khartoum, an important area, for disaster risk reduction. And I would like to invite our ambassador, Gianluigi Vassallo, to open our webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Vincenzo, and good morning, everyone. I am delighted to be here to open this webinar and to see so many of you joining us today. I should particularly like to acknowledge the presence among us on this occasion of Dr. Arwa Kojali, Social Protection Focal Point of the Ministry of Labour and Social Development, Ms. Rina Sain, United Nations Secretary General, Youth Advisor on Climate Change, Dr. Simone Gabellani of the CIMA Foundation in Italy, representatives of organizations of civil society, and so many other friends and interested counterparts. Your interest and your participation in this activity today is evidence of one fact, which to me is clear-cut: the interconnection between the big picture and the smaller picture, between the international reality and the situation existing in each country, which is the foundation for such an initiative as the Festival for Sustainable Development, which tries to enhance a debate about ways to promote development in a way which is environmentally sustainable and compatible. And in that framework, we look forward to debating our experience in Sudan and our partnership with Sudanese counterparts. If we first take a look at the larger picture, I think one key element which we've all had to deal with over the past few months and years, and which has become even more serious in the latest period, is the interconnection of three key challenges: the loss of biodiversity, climate change, and last but not least, the pandemic. The combined effect of these three problems, these three issues, has exposed all of our societies to a different degree, to unparalleled challenges, and has spurred a request from the society in each country, especially youth, for stronger action aimed at developing creative solutions to issues that are both old and new. So, as we are facing these daunting challenges, at the same time we take heart from the fact that it is possible for us to use this window of opportunity to actually get bolder and more creative and think outside the box. For Italy, we're presented, as Italians, we're presented with an additional opportunity. In 2021, as holding the presidency of the G20, together with the United Kingdom as presidents for the year of the G7, we will devise a program of initiatives which go within the framework of the so-called COP26, specifically tackling climate change. It is a developing program of activities which will target both the general profiles of that event and the reality of each country. Within that framework, I can already announce that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will arrange an event of outreach on climate change and sustainable development issues specifically devoted to the African reality in the autumn of 2021. And that we will have more events whose date is still to be defined, which will discuss those issues within from a youth perspective. Because in this respect, not just in the issues, but in our response to those issues, the youth component is particularly important. We know that, and we need to press in that direction. So that is the larger picture. No one of us is exempt from that. All of us have to face it, and we can all learn from each other's experience, which is the reason for the festival, the reason for being here today. As regards the Sudanese experience, once again this year we were faced with both the effect of the pandemic, which have hit the country very hard, and the result of the recent floods, which in a country where the rainy season is already problematic, has caused severe damages and brought the government, the civil society and the local authorities to deal with this issue on an unprecedented scale. The Italian cooperation acted in accordance, in partnership with our Sudanese counterparts on two levels. There hasn't just been the aid which was given and the initiatives that were taken when the problem presented itself. We were prescient, and there was at least one initiative which preceded that, that problem. In March, we hosted Fondazione CIMA, and Dr. Gabellani will tell us more about that, to conduct a study about how best to prepare the neighborhood of Milo, one of the most vulnerable in the country, to the rainy season and the floods. So when they actually presented themselves, even though, of course, no amount of preparation would have made us completely rain-proof, the neighborhood was a bit better prepared, not just acting on the spur of the emergency, but seeking to prepare ourselves and devise a long-term response to problems that are endemic. And then, of course, there was our response to the floods, which they presented themselves, and which came as part of a European unified effort, the European Civil Protection Mechanism was set in place, and within that framework, the European Union, France, Spain, and Italy, of course, provided non-food aid, which provided for a different kind of assistance. So the combined effect of these two mechanisms has helped us to, seek solutions that may help in the short term, but also provide a model for long-term response. In this respect, we have been helped by the cooperation of civil society organizations, Sudanese and Italian, representatives of which are with us today, and I thank them for their effort, because we couldn't have done what we did without their support. Not just in the risk management domain, not just in the short term, but in working with the communities of the affected area to improve the living conditions. And that is another side of the story. It's not just about the canals, it is not just about the floods, it is about making sure that the living conditions of the affected neighborhood evolve for the better. It is about schools, it is about hospitals, it is about everything that will help these vulnerable communities face these everyday challenges. And in this, we are all together. The government and the civil society of Sudan, the government of Italy and our development cooperation, the Italian civil society and other organizations. So those are the reasons why this debate is so important. Those are the reasons why we wanted to host these initiatives today, and why we're so much looking forward to this debate and to your contributions. Once again, thank you all for being here. Your presence means a lot to us, and thank you all very much.
Thanks a lot, Ambassador. I'd like to change a little bit the list of the speech after this broad intervention regarding the politics introduction. I would like, before to invite Arwa Kugali, Mr. Kugali, the focal point for social protection, and then also the ministry. And then we enter in deep in the description of the intervention in Mayo. I think
thank you very much.
Better.
Thank you very much for that. So, Your Excellency, Mr. Basado, Your Excellency, Mr. Bakelepuntu, I hope I pronounced the names correctly, and all the distinguished ladies and gentlemen, today I'm representing the Undersecretary for the Ministry of Labour and Social Development. He is on a mission in Darfur, and he is overseeing himself the flood response in the Darfur region. So he went to the 3 Darfur states, and he's spending some time over there also looking at the emergency response, the flood emergency response, and the situation on the ground, and the delivery of the emergency items which we have received from many of the donors, and also from the government of Sudan. As you know, the flood emergency, or this flood emergency, is the worst in the recent Sudan history. And it came after the COVID-19, which had depleted most of the resources of the vulnerable population in Sudan. More than 800 people have been affected by this emergency since July 2020. And according to the Flood Task Force and the Ministry of Labour and Social Development Humanitarian Aid Commission, HAC, we have lost more than 100 Sudanese in this flood, and 80,000 households have been completely destroyed due to the flood. Also, 82 schools have been destroyed, 2,000 health facilities have been destroyed, and we lost more than 4,000 animals, and 150,000 of the 150,000 acres have been submerged by water, and we won't be able to cultivate them during this season. All this would have a devastating impact on the population of Sudan with the economic crisis which we are currently facing. But with the support with the development partners, including the Italian cooperation, we hope we will be able to overcome this crisis. And we much appreciate all the support we have received so far. And through the Ministry of Labour and Social Development, which is leading on the emergency response and on social development in general, we are trying to achieve the goals of the transitional government and to help all the affected population who were affected by this crisis and some other crises. We are not only trying to support the currently affected population, but also to learn from the lessons of the recent crises which have faced Sudan. So the COVID-19, the internal conflicts which have happened in many areas of Sudan, we are trying to learn from the different lessons and try to improve our responsive system. So we are trying to strengthen our emergency response through initiating early warning systems, and also trying to lead a coordination effort through the Ministry of Labor and Social Development. Now, the establishment of this task force is one of the first steps which we have changed this year for the flood response. So Sudan government is no longer is trying to take its lead part and to help this population, the affected population. Also, through the social protection system, we are trying to have a more responsive social protection system for the country to be able to respond to these crises and to all other future crises in a more responsive and more effective manner, and also in a timely manner as well. We are trying to improve our systems, and we are trying to improve our ways of working. So we will learn from the different studies and the different responses from the lesson learned. And I think the CIMA studies will be one of the studies we will look at, and we'll try to use it to be integrated into our social protection system and our social protection policy. We would like all the development partners to join our efforts to support the households and regions currently affected by the flood crisis, and also to work with us to improve our early warning system and social protection systems. We would like to improve all the government systems to be more effective, more responsive, and more supportive of vulnerable population, and to help them during emergencies, and also to achieve prosperity and better livelihoods. Through our programs in the Ministry of Labor and Social Development, we will try to improve the lives and livelihood of the population, and we also know that the Italian Corporation also have many appreciated efforts in that, and many of the development partners. We have a long way to go, but when we unite our efforts, we'll be able to achieve the goals of the transitional government of Sudan, which is peace and prosperity for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Awatugani. Now I would like to invite Ms. Rina Said. She's UN Secretary General Youth Advisor on Climate Change. Thank you, Ms. Rina.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here with you today. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for giving me the floor, and thank you for all of the people who made this event possible. I know organization of such events needs a lot of time and dedication, so again, thank you all. My name is Nasina Saim. I'm the chair of Sudan Youth Organization on Climate Change. It's a youth-led organization that actually aims to do three main things. First, to build the capacity of young people to be able to adapt to climate change. Second, to spread the awareness about climate change among the public. And the third thing is to guarantee the inclusion of climate change policies within the country. Also, the inclusion of young people in making these policies at the country level. I was recently assigned as the UN Secretary General Youth Advisor on Climate Change, along with other 6 young people from around the world. I'm representing Africa, and also because I'm the only Arabic speaker, I'm also representing Middle East right now. It's a great responsibility, yet we have high hopes that things will work for better. And as I always say, young people's first priority is the planet, and our first priority is also having a future. So we will not be able to actually neglect or convince anything other than the health of our planet. So our top priority is stop climate change. I will give a small presentation. This small presentation will be about the basics of climate change and how climate change can actually cause floods, not only floods, along with other disasters. And if possible, please make me a host so I will be able to share my screen with you. Yes.
You should be able to share it.
Okay, great. I will try to summarize as much as possible, but it's very important to set the first basic concepts right, then everything will be easy. I will also close my camera in order to facilitate the internet connection. Okay. I hope my presentation is clear for everyone. The title of my presentation is going to be Climate Change and Floods. I'm going to give a small background on the concept of climate change itself. The second thing, I will be giving a small brief on the issues that climate change can actually cause. Last but not least, sorry, I will be giving a small information also about how climate change can actually cause floods, and in particularly the situation in Sudan. We started a bit late, so I will try also to sum up more. So first thing, we need to understand the difference between weather and climate change. I'm a very big fan of Climate Kids because it's a program by NASA, and they are trying to break down very basic information to young people, or sorry, actually to children and kids, age of 9 to 11. And it's a very nice program even for adults because it breaks down the information very nicely. Going back to the main concept of what is the difference between weather and climate, and in Arabic especially, I'm sorry, I will be using some of the Arabic language because I have some Arabic audience also. So in Arabic, weather is طقس and climate is manakh. And we, in our daily life, we mix a lot between the weather and the climate. So we say, today the climate is very hot. Tomorrow we are having a changing in the climate, and this is a very wrong concept because there is a huge difference between the weather and the climate, and we will break it down right now. So first of all, the forecast of the climate will be arranged like weather statistics over a period of 30 years or more. So whenever we are talking about changing in weather for today, tomorrow, next year, next 5 years, next 10 years, this is not climate, this is weather. And we call it climate variability, which is the change in different weathers in a long period of time. So in Arabic, it's تغيير المناخ, which is totally different than تغير المناخ. تغير المناخ is the climate change, and تغيير المناخ is the climate variability, which is the normal change in weather over a long period of time. So the first big difference between climate and weather is the forecast. So the forecast of the climate is built on 30 years or more. The forecast of the weather is the collection of statistical data for today, for tomorrow, for next year, for past 5 years, for next 10 years, etc. But it's not like for a long time, such as the climate. The second thing, the field of study itself is totally different between climate and weather. So the study of the climate called climatology, which is the science of climate, or علم المناخيات أو المناخ, علم المناخ. But the study of weather, it's meteorology, which is in Arabic علم الأرصاد الجوي, which is also a totally different thing from the climatology. Because we are talking about 30 years of statistical data and weather changes, a lot of small variabilities doesn't actually appear in climate. So, for example, cloud. We can say the weather is cloudy, but we can never say the climate is cloudy, because cloud is something subject to different changes in the atmosphere itself. So we may say it's cold, humid, hot climate, but we don't say cloudy climate. Also, the small difference between rain and hail, like the small changes in different names, we also don't count it in climate, but we count almost everything in the weather, because weather is over a small period, so you can have more time and more space to give more specific details on the shape or the condition of the weather at the specific time. But in regards to climate, because it's for a long period of time, you can't really talk about the small details about the condition of the weather. You just speak about the general shape or the general view of the situation in the climate. So these are the most common differences between the climate and the weather. And from now until the end of the presentation, I will be only speaking on climate. So I'm going to speak about things that happened 30 years before or things that will happen in 30 years coming. So please try not to use the weather at all when you talk about climate change, and try to also focus on how climate is going to be measured or the climatic effects is going to be measured. Other things, we need to actually segregate between the global warming and the climate change. A lot of people think that the concept of global warming is the same as the concept of climate change, which is definitely not true. So, for example, let's talk about coronavirus, or let's talk about the COVID-19, which is something very relevant to up-to-date situation. So, the disease name, or let's talk about the normal flu. So, the normal flu, the name of flu is the name of the disease, which is similar to climate change. So the climate change is the name of the general disease. It's not the name of the cause. But what caused the flu is a virus, which named, for example, the global warming. So the general disease called climate change, but the cause causing a virus is called global warming. And when we try to break down also the concepts of global warming and climate change means the regional weather change, while global warming means the increasing temperature worldwide. I will go deeper inside talking about global warming, because it's very important to diagnose the virus first, so you can find a cure for the disease. So giving more information about global warming, we will need to understand another basic concept, which is the increasing temperature worldwide. In more accurate things, we will say the increase of the average temperature of the Earth. So what do we mean by average temperature of the Earth? And in order to also explain this concept, I will have a small graphic design. It's not a graphic design, actually. I'm calling my artist spirit, and I will try to draw to you to make easier understanding of what is actually, what do we mean by average temperature of the Earth. So first of all, I will call the whiteboard. And sorry for lecturing you. I'm not a teacher at all. I've never taught anyone, but it's really important for us to explain the concept in order to make easy understanding of the situation. So this circle is the Earth, for example. We have here the polars. And then we have here Canada, North America, Latin America, and like this. It's very clear that I'm a very good artist. So this is Europe, UK, and Russia. Continuing. This is the Mediterranean. So now here we have Africa. Here we have the Red Sea. So now here we have the Gulf countries, Saudi Arabia, other countries here. We have Yemen, and then we go forward, and so on. And in order to make this more clear for everyone, I will be using the green color, dark green color, or sorry, I will be using the pink color to explain the normal situation we have here. So the normal situation we have, we know that the polars are cooler than rest of the Earth. And we know that we have different circles around the Earth. So this is one, this is the equator, 2, and this is 3. And these circles actually control the temperature of the, describe actually the temperature of the Earth. So if, for example, we said that it's minus 20 in the North Pole, polar, and it's minus 20 here also in the South Pole. And as long as we're going up to the equator, the temperature will rise. So let's say it's minus 10 here. Sorry, it's plus 10 here. And plus 10 here also. And in the middle, it's plus 20. So when we try to actually sum all of this, we have minus 20. Again here, minus 20. And we have plus 10. We have another plus 10. And we have plus 20. So when we try to sum all of this, plus 20 is, minus 20 minus 20 is minus 40. Plus 10 is plus 20, that plus 20 is plus 40. So now we have plus 40 and minus 40, and the total sum is equal 0. 0 is the normal equilibrium state for the planet Earth, where the cold area's temperature actually equals the hot area's temperature. This is the normal situation of the planet before the Industrial Revolution. Let's see what happened after the global warming and after the Industrial Revolution. So, the global warming means that the temperature of the Earth, all of the Earth, is going to rise up. For example, here, instead of having minus 20, we will have only minus, for example, minus 10. I'm just assuming things to make the calculations easier. And here also, instead of minus 20, we'll have minus 10. Here, instead of plus 10, we will have plus 15. And also here, we will have plus 15. And in the middle, instead of plus 20, we will have plus 30. I'm just trying to make the calculations easier, so I'm using big digits, but it's not true at all. So we have here minus 10 and minus 10. We also have plus 15, and plus 15 is 30. And another plus and another plus 30. Yes, from the equator. And the total number here, plus 10 and plus 10 is minus 10 and minus 10 is minus 20, minus 20 and plus 60. The total is plus 40. And this is the situation we already have here. This is what happened during the global warming. This number, as I told you earlier, is just to make the concept understood, but the whole Paris Agreement is talking only about increasing of 2 degrees. I'm here using plus 40, and if we had plus 40, then we are already dead, barbecued first, then dead. But the whole Paris Agreement is talking about 2 degrees Celsius as increase in the average temperature. A lot of countries, especially the African group of negotiators, demanded 1.5 degrees, and there is a recent report by the IPCC, which is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, was actually dedicated to break down the concept between the difference of if we reach 2 degrees and if we reached only 1.5 degrees. All of the changes that we are suffering right now is because we already reached 1.1 degrees. So in order to keep the track of 1.5, we only have 0.4 degrees. And according to the current situation, I don't think we will stick to the 1.5 degrees. The total number of submissions from different countries that actually talks about decreasing the emissions of the greenhouse gases or the global warming is actually reached 3.4, which is also too much for us because, as I said earlier, we are now in 1.1 and we already started to have such disasters. So only God knows what will happen if we actually reach 3.4 as it is right now. So going back to my presentation, I hope the concept of the average temperature of the Earth is more clear for you now, because this is exactly what is about global warming, is the rise of the average temperature of the Earth. So this is the greenhouse gases, that's the actual cause of the global warming itself. And in order to make the concept of the global warming more easier, you need to consider these greenhouse gases as a blanket. When the weather is cold, we use blanket in order to cover our bodies and in order to save our hot temperature that comes out from our body reserve and not to be spread into the out atmosphere around us. The greenhouse gases are actually doing the same. They are doing just like the blanket for the planet Earth, forbidding the extra amount of energy to go out for the space, which actually cause a lot of issues as we will see later on. Most famous greenhouse gas is the carbon dioxide, and which we know that it actually emits from every burn of organic bodies or organic compositions, like the fossil fuel, like the biomass, like coal or charcoal, I mean, or wood or papers or dead bodies or anything, any burn of carbon contained bodies will actually emit carbon dioxide. The second thing is the methane. The most emitted gas is the carbon dioxide, but it's not a dangerous one. The other 5 greenhouse gases are actually more dangerous than the carbon dioxide, but the emissions of the carbon dioxide is by far more than the other emissions of the other gases. So this graph actually explains the concept of the blanket, as I told you earlier. I will try to use the pointer here so things can be more clear for you. Sorry. Okay, so now I'm going to use this red pointer. So we know that the Earth actually absorbs all of its energy and light from the sun, and this is the sun here. The sun sends 100% energy to the Earth. Some of this energy is actually reflected by the outside atmosphere, for example, the ozone and the other combinations of the outside atmosphere. The second, let's assume this is a 20%. We have another 10% reflected outside by the clouds, dust, anything in the inner atmosphere of the Earth. And we have 70% that actually reaches the Earth. This 70%, 40% of it is actually being absorbed by the water fronts, like the oceans, the seas, and more than 20% is being absorbed by the planet in their normal biological situation, which is when they use chlorophyll with the sun of the light in order to in order for the plants to grow actually. And then we have left with more than 20% extra energy. The normal situation is the 20% extra energy goes back to the atmosphere and then to the outer space. But because of the blanket theory and because of the greenhouse gases, it actually it ends up trapped inside of the Earth, which cause the raise of the temperature of the Earth, which is called the global warming. So this is the basic concept of the global warming itself and how it happened and what is the part or actually what is the role of the greenhouse gases. So the greenhouse gases trap the energy inside of the Earth and doesn't let the extra energy go back to the outer atmosphere or to the space. Okay, now we go to disasters caused by climate change. I hope that the explanation of the difference between climate change and global warming is clear. Also, the difference between weather and climate is also clear because these are the basic concepts of the information. So climate change affects global temperature and perception patterns. These effects in turn influence the intensity of some cases or frequency of extreme environmental events such as floods, earthquakes, hurricanes, droughts, wildfires, snowstorms, severe thunderstorms, and volcanic erosion, and other effects from climate change that affects the normal situation of the Earth. And the most important thing to know about climate change is it's never normal with climate change. So it's either extreme drought or extreme rain that actually cause flood. It's either extreme hard or extreme soft. So we have an earthquake. It's either extreme cold, so we have snowstorms, or extreme hot, so we have heat waves, and sometimes we have volcanic explosions happening from the extreme heat. So what actually makes climate change dangerous is this, let me say, extreme in having different climatic events or different conditions of our weather, our daily life weather, caused by the change of the climate itself. There are also non-climatic factors that climate change affects, which is, for example, severe poverty, because if we actually having a country like Sudan that depends on natural resources for food, for export, for our water security, for our food security, then small changes in this equilibrium system will actually cause severe poverty. For example, a lot of farmers nowadays lost their farms or their crops due to the flood because it was 100% flooded by water, and they lost their livelihood. It also affected their food security, and we will have resource mismanagement because if we can't predict things, how things will happen, then we can't actually have a prediction for how are we going to manage it if we don't know what will happen with it in the first place. Of course, lack of income diversity, because a lot of people will move from nature-based jobs or nature-based income to more secure fields that climate change will not affect soon. It will affect climate change will affect everything at the end, but people will move to more secured fields than the natural resources fields. Also, we'll have a lot of conflict over natural resources, and this will actually affect the security and the peace situation in different countries, especially the conflicts between the farmers and the foresterers, and especially the conflict between the different nomads. Because if we have a lack of natural resources in one area, then the only solution for the people is to be an IDPs, which is the internally displaced persons, and they will move to somewhere else. Somewhere else will be more likely occupied by other people, and they will be not, the resources will not be able to actually maintain the already existed people there. So when they have someone coming from outside, they will feel threat and they will try to create a conflict. So the coming from the outsiders will scare and leave, and then we might end up in a situation we will have a lot of civil wars, for example, or other armed movements that actually created in order to defend their land or in order to defend their natural resources. Also, lack of services, which is very much linked to all of what mentioned above. Displacement of communities, I just explained that. Gaps in policies and legislation, because you cannot actually have a policy on something you cannot predict. And also our decision makers, our policy makers are a bit far from understanding how climate change will affect every manner of life. And we will try as much as possible to educate and to influence on the new government to take into consideration the climate change effects. Luckily, the peace agreement was signed in Juba, and the separation happened yesterday. Have a whole chapter 10 about environment, and especially in chapter 10, paragraph 95 is talking about the commitment of both parties to consider the climate change issues and environmental issues in every planning. And we will make sure this paragraph doesn't only stay ink on papers, but actually have break down into policies, laws, and plans. Now, how climate change is affecting floods. Of course, when we have higher temperature, then more energy in the earth system, then it increases the vibration from the water, from the waterfronts like the seas or the oceans, and this means more cloud formation and also increase of moisture in the content in the air, which is also will cause more rapid rainfall. This is a very small description on the temperature that we had in different years, also in different months, and we can see that in April or March it was the highest in 2020, which actually a lot of people think this actually caused the heavy rainfall in August and September, because you can see here it went very low, and what happened in the beginning of the year actually affects a lot what happens in the end of the year. Also, the color here describes the temperature from 1950 to 1980 compared to the temperature that we are having right now. So the blue color mean very cold, the green color mean medium cold, the yellow color mean more hot, and then the red color mean very hot. And we can see here that we are moving from a very cold weather into a very blue to a very red, which is a very serious indicator. Five things we need to know about floodings and climate change. First, I just explained that warmer atmosphere mean more moisture and mean more evaporation from the waterfronts. The second thing, evidence of heavier rainfall in the past is limited, but we have more evidence that the rainfall, heavier rainfall, will happen next year also is coming, because a lot of models now are taking more factors into consideration. So soon we'll have a very big report talking about more floods are yet to come. So we really need to be prepared and well prepared for that. The third thing is specific events actually contribute to climate change. It's very tricky to predict it, and flooding is not no exception from that. We cannot actually predict anything that comes to climate change events related. We can only have models that actually expect what will happen, but because we are talking about 30 years and there's a lot of variabilities and the global warming is increasing and there's a lot more emissions of the greenhouse gases, so we cannot really guarantee or yes, so we cannot guarantee that we will have enough data. Also, scientists predict that heavy rainfall will increase in the future. Flooding is just not about rainfall. Other human factors can contribute to it. So we really need to count these factors very well and very detailed, so we can know what's happening. Yes, so what happened in Sudan? This is my last two slides. What happened in Sudan is we have two events that which related to climate change, which is El Nino and La Nina. And El Nino means the temperature of the Pacific Ocean have increased at certain point, and the La Nina is talking about the Pacific Ocean temperature also decreased in one moment, and not the whole Pacific Ocean, but the area that is very much in line with the equator. So the equatorial Pacific Ocean area temperature actually affects a lot what happens in Sudan and how much rain we have. I know it's crazy to understand this, like how the Pacific Ocean, thousands of kilometers away from Sudan, can affect the rainfall in our country. But this is climate change, and this is the concept of having one planet. Well, when we have El Nino in the equatorial Pacific Ocean, which is increase in the temperature of the area, this means a dry in the Ethiopian highland, but a lot of rain within the Great Lakes area, which is Lake Victoria, Congo Basin Lake, and etc. And we know that the Nile, actually, the White Nile comes from the Victoria Lake, and the Blue Nile comes from the Tana Lake. So we are very much linked to both areas, the high Ethiopian land and the Great Lakes area. So El Nino caused a very massive rain in the Great Lakes area, which is, for example, like Lake Victoria for us, and La Nina, which is the drop in the temperature in the Equator Ocean Pacific area, causes increased rainfall in the Ethiopian highland, but dry season in the Great Lake area. What happened this year is we had a very long 5 months of La Nina, which means that from El Nino, which means that we did not expect to have rainfall in the Ethiopian highland, but we expected to have a very high rainfall in the Great Lake land, which is, for example, Lake Victoria. But what happened is in May, the El Nino shifted to be La Nina, which is a very unique thing to happen, which caused both heavy rains in the Great Lakes area and also heavy rains in the highland of Ethiopia, which actually at the end caused a flood in the White Nile. At the same time, we had flood in the Blue Nile. In general, the result was a chaotic situation, flooding in Sudan. And this happened only like 5 or 10 times, between 5 to 10 times from the year of 1950. And scientists expect that they will have more of La Nina, sorry, El Nino shift in the upcoming days. So they predict more floods, as I earlier said. Thank you very much for your consideration. I hope I did not speak too long. I know I did, but I hope it was understood, and I hope also I contributed to the general understanding of the situation in Sudan. Thank you very much. I will stop sharing right now, and I will open my camera.
Thank you for your very interesting lesson about the climate change and the consequences in Sudan. Now we would like to go in deep regarding our intervention in Mayo. Mayo, first of all, is the area with 600,000 people, IDPs and refugees in particular, is living in extreme poverty and vulnerability. Our intervention in general in the disaster risk reduction include funds in development and emergency. We can see two different components. A sort of immediate relief. So we gave plastic sheets and youth sacks, 2,500 to break and so on. And then long-term initiatives, in particular in participation with our civil society NGOs. I'd like to start in particular now with the CIMA Foundation, part of our Italian civil protection, that went in March to give us a specific instruction on how to mitigate floods during and after the rain season. With this instruction, then our NGOs and also our bilateral initiative, they implement some specific activities in Mayo. So now I would like to invite Simone Gabellani of the CIMA Foundation to explain the mission done in the last Mayo, in the last March.
So good morning, everybody, and thank you all for organizing this meeting and inviting us to this event. I'm Simone Gabellani from CIMA Foundation, and I bring you the greetings of our president, Professor Luca Ferraris. He cannot be here today with us due to sudden commitments caused by the flooding situation that we experienced yesterday in northwest part of Italy. I'm the head of the hydrology and hydraulics department in CIMA, and CIMA is a competence center, so a center for flooding of the Italian civil protection. So we work on flood forecasting, developing different systems for forecasting of flood, not only in Italy, to support the hydrometeorological offices, and we worked a lot in South America, in part of the East Europe, and also in North Africa, in some parts of in Lebanon, for example. We also work on risk mapping and civil protection emergency planning. The Italian civil protection sent us to Sudan, to Khartoum, at the end of February, beginning of March of this year, with a specific goal to enhance the risk knowledge through a flood risk assessment of the Maio Angola area, and the goal was to reduce the population vulnerability. I don't know, Veronica, if you want to show the video.
Can you show the video, drone shot video on Maio overview?
Yeah, we can start with the video, and then I have a presentation to illustrate the work that we did, and so the project that we built. Otherwise, I can share the video. I don't know how it's better.
Yeah.
Can you see?
Not yet.
No, it's going. Wait.
I don't see. Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. As I mentioned, our goal was to, let's say, enhance the risk knowledge to mission field assessment. So we went to Sudan with topographic instruments, and in particular with some drones that allows us to, let's say, shot this video, but not only we say collect a lot of topographic information, and I will show you later on during my presentation how we used quantitative measurement from the drone. This is just, let's say, a video to show everybody the situation. We were in the emergency pediatric hospital. You can see the symbol of emergency, and this is Maio. Angola is the poorest part of Maio, the area where we design an intervention. These are the typical houses of Maio, say melted with essentially mud, typical construction with mud roof and other kinds of roof. As you can see, there is no urbanization, there are not proper sewer system or system to drain somehow water. And the density of population, as you can see, is, let's say, very, very high. The houses are very close each other. So thank you, Veronica. I can share my screen now. I've prepared the presentation. Okay, I hope you can see the presentation, and I will explain you our activity related to disaster risk reduction for Maio. We went to Sudan in a group of 5 people, and also my name is Simone Gabellani, as Vincenzo said, and also our president Ferraris came into Sudan. The situation after rainfall event is represented in those pictures of the summer of 2019. This is the typical situation during the rainy season. So the area is extremely flat. There is no drainage system. So rainfall create these big ponds that create problems to reach the area, and also to reach the emergency clinic, and creates a lot of problems also related to the disease and to the presence of mosquitoes and vectors of the disease. What we did during the 10 days that we spent in Sudan, we performed a detailed field survey using a drone and topographic instrument to map the Mayo-Angola camp, and we developed the ponding risk assessment. So we evaluate the risk of ponding and the situation related to the presence of water after rainfall. Usually you have to distinguish between river rain floods. So river rain floods, in river rain floods, the waters comes and flood an area comes from a river. In this case, we are talking about the water that after rainfall remains on the ground and is not drained away. And we design and defined a drainage system according to the measurement and topographic measurements that we did during the missions. Another future goals that we have is to provide capacity building on civil protection and early warnings to local staff. But these things, it's a little bit stopped by this COVID-19 situation. These are some pictures of our mission in March, in which you can see the instrument, the drones, and we also, as you can see in this picture, on the bottom part, on the right of the screen, also the Sudan Surveys Authority was present during the topography mission, and we built a good collaboration with them. They had drones, but they had some problems in using them, so we provided them training during these missions. And it was a very, let's say, good cooperation, and I hope it will continue. The camp of Mayo, it's about 25 kilometers, and there are more than 600,000 people live there. We mapped an area of about 3 square kilometers. You can see the path of the flight and the area in which we are interested in particular is Mayo, Angola, the poorest part of the Mayo area, that is about 0.13 square kilometer. From the drone survey, we obtain, for example, this orthophoto, so a very detailed image of the area, something like, let's say, similar to Google Earth, but much more detailed. So this is Mayo, Angola. And you can see also on the upper right part of this square, the emergency pediatric clinic. So, and this is a zoom in which you can appreciate the detail of this kind of survey. We do not only derive the orthophoto from the survey, create a digital surface model of the area. So we create the topography, the elevation of each point on a very detailed grid. The resolution of the grid is 13 centimeters. So it's a very high resolution maps that allows us to obtain the drainage direction. So we obtain the direction in which the water flow, or it's supposed to flow, because the area is very, very flat. This is a processing of the topography in which you can see, let's say, small rivers. So usually the main direction of the water is towards north, and we did an analysis of the historical rainfall events that hit the area. We collected the rainfall mainly from satellite, because there is a lack of knowledge of instrument. There are not ground instruments that measure rainfall, for example. And so we used satellite precipitation. We analyzed more than 20 years of the historical records, and we built an hydraulic model of the area to estimate the depth of water due to ponding during a typical event that hit this region. This is a detail in which you can see the water depth in each point of the Mayo Angola, and by examining this modeling simulation and by examining the topography, we can say that as you know, the area is extremely flat, but and the slopes are say very slow, very low, and this is say a problem to design channels and to design a drainage system. One of the problems is that the direct rainfall that hit Mayo causes floods, but also Yarmouk, that is the Mayo part on the south of Angola, drains water towards Angola. So this increased the problems in Angola. And then there are some obstructed channels that were used for irrigation that, say, didn't function anymore. Moreover, the completely absence of a sewer water system increased the problematics related to rainfall flooding. So this is a global picture in which you can see that waters drain from Yarmouk towards Angola, and those areas are particularly depressed. The square is in front of the emergency campus, and then these channels are completely obstructed, and also this other channel is not in a very good shape. We design an intervention to reduce and to mitigate the problem of this area. First of all, it should be built a retention pond that you can see in this picture, here, indicated with the letter C. The retention pond is needed due to the fact that the slopes of the area are very low and do not allow us to build a proper drainage system. Of course, this pond should be protected with fences to avoid that people can reach the water, and it should be protected also the vectors, so for the mosquitoes. And it should managed and keep it with a hydraulic pump indicated with D in these pictures, and this hydraulic pump must pump water into this channel. Then these channels must be restored and cleaned from garbage and obstructions. And we also design the creation of new channels, this one indicated with the letter A, and this one with that go from south to north to the ponds, and the restoration of these existing channels indicated with B at the border between Yarmouk and Angola. Of course, the channels are equipped with culverts to allow to cars and trucks to pass over the channels, and also culverts for the pedestrian transit. So we of course designed, dimensioned those channels, and another important intervention are the reshaping of the square facing emergency. So this square should be reshaped to give this square, the area, the correct slope. So this square must draw water to the channels. And also the traffic road must be reshaped with correct slope to convey water into the channels. Of course, we propose also to build an elevated platform for the mobile hydraulic pump. That's about, say, the works that can be physically done in the area, and to mitigate the problems. Of course, we know that they cannot completely solve the problems, because to completely solve, say, the problems, huge interventions are needed related to the urbanization of the area. Using the survey, we also perform an evaluation on the type of buildings, of the houses that are in the area, and evaluate the population density. We classify all the houses in 4 different categories. So the yellow one are the galous, so the typical construction in mud, so covered with roof made in mud. Then we classify houses with cover in Utah, or in plastic, or in galvanized iron sheets. This is, say, these are some zoom to appreciate the different categories of things, and we are particularly interested in the cover type of this building. We estimated more or less 2,400 roof for estimated population of about 15,000 people, with a very, very high density for square kilometers. Most of the roof are made in mud, so the galous 40%, the others are in Utah or plastics. But what is important from this analysis is that about, let's say, 50% of roof can be useful to harvest water. So if we equip this roof with tanks, and we collect the rainfall on tanks, and on those tanks we reduce the of a lot, about 50%. We reduce a lot the ponding of water. So this can help a lot in mitigating the situation. So this was one of the suggestions that we wrote down in our report.
Simone,
See?
so to interrupt you, but exactly I would like to say that with some Italian intervention in collaboration also with some NGOs, we followed your suggestion, your recommendation, and we did the channels and the installation of the tanks. This is important to say. This is a sort of a best practice because after the assessment, we pass through the intervention. And it's not, I think, what is important to say that your job is not complete because you have to come back to Mayo to see exactly the second phase of the intervention, because next rain season will be the same, but with some can we say infrastructure that can mitigate really the situation. Because, for example, the pumps, the water pumps, they are not already installed, and also the bounds that, for example, the localities, they at present they don't want to install for security reasons. So the intervention are in progress, and your present will be very important to exactly to see what is important to continue and what, for example, is not used, is not really used. Can pass through our NGOs, or you would like to continue, Simone?
I conclude. Thank you. We are happy to come in Sudan again, and I hope that we can come to Khartoum as soon as possible. Just to conclude, saying that, of course, these mitigation measures are, let's say, very localized and do not, of course, completely solve the situation. Only urban planning can solve the very, very complicated and difficult situation. To complete the activities, to the narration of the activities that we did during our mission, we installed also a meteorological station to measure precipitation and temperature, and let's say start to build in a very small early warning system. We cooperate with the African Union to build an early warning system. I hope that all this activity will go on, and we will able to cooperate with all the entities in building an effective early warning system, because it will help a lot to prepare population and to prepare before that the event happens. At the end, during the survey, we also map the area of this very small area in Mayo Mandela, where a new school is planned to be built by the Italian corporation. So I thank you all. This was the group that, let's say, work during the mission. I thank you all for organizing the event again and for listening to the presentation.
Thank you, Simone. Very interesting and very useful also for the next panelists. And I would like to recall that actually in Mayo we have 3 different projects. One in emergency, and we will present also 3 civil society organizations, Italian CSOs, that implement some activities following the instruction of the CIMA. Then we have also the Mayo Up project, is 2 million managed by AICS. And with this, we built the channels in particular, actually. And then there is a UNDP project financed by ASA for the sustaining the youth and mitigate the risk of the most vulnerable and marginalized area. So now I would like to introduce Enrico Neri, from the project manager of COPI, then Giulia Pagani, Grand Manager of Emergency, and Deborah Barone, Project Manager of ASviS. So Enrico Neri, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. I'm me and Enrico, Mia and Martina Granato from COPI. I'm the Assistant Project Manager, and with my colleague Enrico Neri, the Project Manager, we prepared the jointly presentation.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Well, good afternoon. Actually, I want also to introduce you a third operator from COPI Khartoum. His name is Mohamed El Taib. He's a civil engineer, expert in WASH. And we collaborated among the 3 to make this presentation. Let me share my screen in order to begin. Confirm to me if you can see.
Okay, I cannot see yet.
We can see it.
Yes, me too.
Okay, very well. So let us start.
Okay.
Go, Martina, please.
Thank you, Enrico. I would like to start briefly introducing to you the framework within which the flood emergency occurred in Sudan. Actually, 2020 has been a year of political transformation for the country, which is undertaking a democratic transitional process, and flooding emergency is coming to the peak of this delicate phase. I might say that particularly worrying is the economic instability, which is driving millions of people towards food insecurity. Across the country, across Sudan, about 9.3 million people require humanitarian support. And actually, as the COVID-19 crisis unfolds, more and more people are unable to meet their basic needs. As we can see from the FAO WFP report on the early warning analysis of acute food insecurity, Sudan is actually highlighted as one of the food insecurity hotspots. Well, we can say that is a general trend across the southern part of the world. Actually, as we can see from the map, the number of people facing acute food insecurity is going to increase, also due to the COVID-19 outbreak and the high inflation that continues to erode the household's purchasing power, but also the job losses and, as a matter of fact, the rises of the food basket prices. We might add also other 2 reasons which are related to conflicts and climate change, as also Nasrin has showed to us. Particularly in the case of Sudan, to the difficulties of COVID-19, the economic crisis, the political instability, we may have also natural disasters, the invasion of desert locusts and floods. Starting from the middle of August 2020, Sudan is facing a heavy rainy season, which has been affected an increasing number of people and causing more destruction across the country. As also our guest from Labor and Social Development showed us, the government estimates that thousands of people have been affected, then 800 houses have been destroyed, and 1,700 hectares of arable lands has been destroyed too. Actually, much of the flooding was triggered by the rains in the neighboring Ethiopia, which caused the Nile River to rise and breach its banks. As a matter of fact, the Nile River reached the highest level in centuries, according to authorities, which is 17.5 meters. We as COPI, Cooperazione Internazionale, have been present here in Sudan since 2004, so for 14 years, with development and humanitarian emergency operation in North Darfur and in Kassala state. But actually, COPI is now expanding programmatic operations also in Khartoum state, thanks to two AICS, Italian Agency for Development Cooperation, funded projects related to the sector of disaster risk reduction and resilience. How we responded to the flood emergency in Khartoum state? Well, first of all, we followed the coordination of the SNFI cluster at Khartoum state level. We participated with UNHCR to a rapid assessment in the area of Jebel Aulia, which is one of the most affected areas of Khartoum state. Then we carried on a field survey in order to distribute, thanks also to Italian Agency for Development Cooperation contribution with the sand deliveries in 5 villages of Jebel Aulia locality. That's why at the middle of September, we distributed 15 trucks of sands, which are actually aimed to prevent and reduce water damages and protect the foundations and the structures, like basically houses. Then we also distributed 1,138 NFI kits in the same area, in the same villages, which are 5. Garagir, Al-Asal, Wad al-Mukhtar, Gammar, and Rabah. We also distributed 500 NFI kits in Mayo Mandela area. And I'm now leaving the floor to my colleague Enrico Neri, which is going to explain to you in details, which is the intervention of COPI in Khartoum state.
Basically, following the changes that the whole country is experimenting, trying a hard but real transition to a new model, the same people from Mayo is trying to carry out in their neighborhoods. So one of the main tasks that we feel is to ensure a rapid response to the emergency event that occurred during the last 2 months, but also to make a big effort to turn the situation into a more development setting, trying to ensure conditions that can allow us to make a transition from response to risk reduction. This process has been conducted following 3 main axes. The first and probably the most important is the involvement of community. through the Mayo App project. That's one of the two projects we are currently developing in Mayo area, funded by Italian Agency for Cooperation to Development, AICS. We are working side by side with the community committee that are also named resistant committees or youth committees, depending from the place where they are operating, in order to to set up a community-based disaster risk reduction mechanism. This because we are convinced that it's not possible to solve the problem of floods or of any other disaster on the field exclusively with an external intervention, for much powerful it could be. As we are speaking from the Festival della Sostenibilità, I think that sustainability can be ensured only through a complete ownership and a large-scale involvement of local communities. And this is the first principle we are trying to apply, that's participation. So since the project started, 1 month more or less, our community mobilizers deployed to the field and have continuous contact with the communities and the committees. The second principle is innovation. We are following with the great support of CIMA Foundation, the indication that we received, but to speak about this, I prefer to leave the speech to my colleague Mohamed Al-Taib, that's a WASH engineer.
Thank you to give me this opportunity. For WASH components and in the context of climate change in Mayo area, severe shortage of water supply with rainwater floods are dramatically increasing in the last few years. And according to CIMA assessment, between 12,000 and 15,000 people are living in only 0.1 kilometer square area. The average rainfall in the whole country is estimated to be 130 millimeters. The expected rainfall for the next 25 years in Mayo is 65 millimeters, which means around 50,700 meter cube volume of rainwater in Mayo region only. The overall goal of Mayo project is to improve WASH community infrastructure for water supply, aiming to implement an innovative rainwater harvesting system for domestic household level that can be applied for emergency and post-emergency context, in order not only to rely on groundwater resource, but also on rainwater. Mayo project has specific objectives, which are firstly to identify the beneficiary's household, secondly to install 130 water tanks on identified houses and public buildings. Additionally, the project aims to organize an informative session on hygiene and sanitation good practice. And finally, Mayo project will work on improving the condition of the main drains to reduce the risk of flooding for upcoming years. The key benefit for the rainwater harvesting intervention, from environmental aspect, it can reduce the demand on groundwater resource. Also from social and economic perspective, rainwater harvesting is a simple approach with low cost intervention. Finally, this project has a high potential for scale up. And thank you, and I give the floor to Mr. Eric.
Well, thank you, Mohamed Al-Taib, working in our intervention in Mayo. The third one is basically a multi-stakeholder partnership, a coordination among different stakeholders. This is particularly useful in basically a few weeks of implementing project. We already had the opportunity to collaborate with many local, both formal and informal stakeholders, and most of all to activate the network and the relationship between the network that I think can give to our intervention a big added value in order to maximize the impact of our intervention. This means, for an example, that all the huge analysis work that CIMA Foundation realized during their mission could be easily expanded and shared with a lot of organizations that can contribute to the solving of many of the problems of the communities. Well, this is basically what we are doing in this moment. I think that a moment like this of sharing the approach of different organizations is particularly welcome and cannot produce nothing but a great progress in the results that we can directly test on the field. Thank you.
Grazie, thank you Enrico. Giulia?
Yes, I'm online. Okay. Hi everyone. Thank you for the occasion of inviting us to speak about our intervention in Mayo. I feel particularly honored and happy to be with you all, and especially to speak after Simone and Enrico, who are doing a great job, which is complementary to our intervention, which is mainly health mandated in the area of Mayo. In the presentation which I'm sharing in a few moments, I will focus on emergency mandate and intervention in Mayo, on the Primissima Emergenza funded project by the Italian cooperation, which is mainly ensuring continuity of healthcare services within the underserved area of Mayo, and I would focus on the link between disaster risk reduction and health promotion, which is our contribution in terms of preparedness. As our ambassador was pointing out at the very beginning, that the need is there, not only for response, but for better preparation from the early stages of an emergency. So I am to share the screen right now. I hope you can see my presentation. In case, just shout. Okay. Perfect. So the title of the presentation will be exactly the title of our AICS funded project, so Prevention and Health Assistance during the 2020 rainy season within Mayo area, with a small subtitle explaining the core of this presentation: fostering sustainable health systems through continuity of services and risk communication during the rain season. I would like to skip the first slide because Martina and our colleague from the Ministry of Labor already explained very well the situation, which is now unprecedented in terms of riverine levels ever recorded in 100 years, which triggered the declaration of 3-month national state of emergency. I would maybe introduce briefly emergency programming in Sudan. We kicked off operation in 2014, and actually the first operation center to be opened was exactly the Mayo Clinic, which is providing pediatric, sexual and reproductive health care and nutrition screening plus life-saving referrals. Given that it is a clinic, it cannot treat very serious medical complications, which is on the contrary the case of the Salam Center, a center for highly specialized cardiosurgery, which was opened in 2007 in Sobahilla. And it's up to now the only center within North and Central Africa providing free of charge and high quality cardiac surgery for rheumatic heart diseases. In 2011, we opened the pediatric hospital of Port Sudan, where I'm actually now based. So if you see the surrounding of our hospital is exactly where I am at the moment, due to some monitoring missions that I had to perform there. Plus, we opened operation and we are about to reopen again our pediatric hospital in Niala, which is exactly providing the same pediatric services as Port Sudan is providing. Plus, the Salam Center is welcoming patients from a network of African countries, which are selected through cardiac screening missions in order to receive surgical operations within the center. Everything is paid by emergency because our core value is to provide free of charge and high quality healthcare assistance, from the very basic level, as it's for Mayo, to the most sophisticated interventions like cardiac surgery. I am now to focus on the link between floods and healthcare, because might not be clear to some of the audience. As you can imagine, and as the drone taken video has very extensively shown, Mayo is an area in which the risk of stagnating water and such kind of founds is exactly out there when there is flooding. So what we experienced, and that was also posing us problems in reaching our center of operation, was that the stagnating water, which was grouping after the heavy rains, was giving the ditches to the rise and the outbreak of endemic diseases which are easily triggered by floods. Waterborne and vector-borne diseases such as cholera, malaria, diarrhea. We didn't at the moment report any outbreak as such, but we of course saw an increase of malaria cases in the area in which we operate, in the Mayo and Angola area. Moreover, the extensive damages to health facilities, the collapse of nearly 30,000 latrines in the Jabal Aulia area, and contamination of hundreds of water sources heightened the health-related needs. Mayo has been already very well explained and shown. So what I just would like to point out is that it was established as an IDP camp more than 20 years ago. Now the status has changed, but it's still home to people who are fleeing from all over Sudan, South Sudan, and other areas like Chad or Cameroon. We indeed, in our monthly and weekly statistics, map the origins of every patient which is coming. And of course, we witnessed a very heterogeneous situation in terms of origins. As Simone, Enrico, Martina, Mohammed pointed out, the area lacks sewage and a functioning water distribution system. When waste is accumulated, it's rare to find infrastructure or people able to manage that correctly, because it's also difficult in terms of infrastructure to have a place where to remove and store the garbage. We are not working on that because our mandate is to be a health mandated NGO. So we are providing health assistance. That's why in the clinic we stay stable. We don't go exactly where an emergency is arising, like exactly when the flooding is occurring, but we stay in a stable way to provide people in the area and to be there for them when they come for a consultation. Through the AICS funding of Primissima Emergenza, we have been allowed to secure pharmacy stock, personal protective equipment, everything which is needed to provide a safe and secure intervention for our healthcare personnel, because of course treating diseases which are very infectious pose risk also to our staff. So with this protection and with the possibility to have more resources like risk communication materials, water tanks, garbage bins for appropriate waste management, which is starting from our clinic, through AICS funding, we will be able to target 7,361 beneficiaries living across the area, comprising, as you can see, 4,140 boys and girls, 350 women, because our clinic is not only providing pediatric services, but also ensuring antenatal care consultation, postnatal care consultation, and family planning assistance, and 171 men. There is no intervention in terms of health targeting men, but as I will explain in the next slide, which is the core of the presentation, we are ensuring health promotion, which is part of our preventive medicine program, now more relevant than ever in terms of flooding, because it can trigger behavior change in terms of safe practices to be adapted when there is a need to contain the risk of outbreaks or store food properly. So this is the second result of our intervention. The first is to provide safe and secure continuity of healthcare services. Health promotion, what is health promotion? It means that with a two-folded approach, we go in outreach once per week targeting schools and therapeutic feeding centers, which are centers providing nutrition services in the area. And at a clinic level, twice per day, 5 days per week, which is the full week of operation of the clinic, we have dedicated health promoters, which are comparable to community mobilizers, as our copy colleagues were previously speaking about, who, as you can see in the picture, maybe I am to zoom a bit so you can see more, they work in the triage area at a clinic level, as you can see, with dedicated banners and health promotion material, speaking with the mothers and explaining to them the risk of diarrhea, the risk of malaria, the symptoms, how to recognize them, how to treat a specific disease with the resources available, which might be preparing some complementary feeding with the ingredients that they found in the market. And when we go in outreach, we have also the possibility to perform nutrition screening, which is performed also at outpatient consultations level. So the health promotion is continuous in our operation because we believe that prevention of risks is the core of ensuring healthcare, which is sustainable and continuous for all years of operation. What we saw in terms of achievement is that the community is engaged. When our community health promoters speak to mothers, or previous studies in terms of statistics showed that the retention of good messages is actually being confirmed by the beneficiaries. And we also have good ties with local actors. Martina was speaking about resistant committees before. Martina or Enrico, I now don't remember, but this is the same actors we are working in the area, because we both share information in terms of areas which have been flooded or which have to be targeted specifically when we go in outreach, and they ensure that beneficiaries know our services. So in terms of health promotion, they are good sources of information and good facilitators in terms of reaching most underserved areas. What we see in terms of challenges is, of course, what colleagues from COPI or from CIMA are working on. So the fact that there is no sewage system, that in households is difficult to implement the good practices that they receive as a message to be capitalized in our clinic. But although this is a serious challenge which needs concerted efforts, not only from NGO side, but also from governmental side, I can see also listening to the presentation of our colleagues that very many efforts are being taken in this direction. Also because they are targeting areas which are very close to our clinic, which are very grateful for. So in this sense, we see that both in terms of behavior change communication and providing adequate infrastructure to the area, of course, is a long way forward, but there is actors working on that. And this makes us confident, at least in the long term. In the last slide, I'm just sharing materials that we use for the health promotion, which have been used for which are being used for the current project. So as you can see, there is the emergency and also Italian cooperation logo. So they are in both languages, as you can see, English, because our medical coordinator speaks English and not Arabic, but of course it's translated in Arabic, because otherwise our beneficiaries would not be able to benefit from the good advices and best practices showed here. And as said, the role of community health promoters is very important to us, because they stand in the clinic or they go in outreach showing these banners and explaining, making these messages alive and being understood by our beneficiaries. So I said, we think that behavior change communication and continuing of ensuring healthcare services is a long way forward, but we are working on it, and we are available also to further discuss or answer to questions in case there might be. Thanks.
Yeah. Now, Deborah from ASviS. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Yes. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I really want to thank you, the Italian Corporation. I really want to thank you also, my colleagues and all the people for the intervention. They were really interesting, and I'm really glad to see that we are going in the same direction, focusing on the same target, and this is really, really important for us, and it's great. So I will briefly show you ASviS project. I don't know if you see my screen. Okay.
Yes, we see it.
Great. So I'll try to be brief. So our project, we are implementing our project in Maio, especially in Yarmouk area, of course, in the framework of the Primissima Emergenza founded by the Italian Corporation. So we will explain briefly our activities. We have two kinds of activities because we think that right now Sudan, as the rest of the world, is facing multiple emergencies. So for sure, Sudan is facing the economical crisis. Then also we are facing an hydrogeological emergency, but also the COVID emergency. So all these emergencies are overlapping, and they are creating challenges, and they are creating problems. And of course, people in need are suffering from this situation. So that's why the first kind of activities we are trying to implement are in direct support of the population. So we know that in this kind of situation, people are not able to meet their basic needs. That's why, first of all, we are distributing food baskets containing basic foodstuffs in order to face the lacks of resources of these people right now. Second, we are distributing hygiene kits that that are containing kits for personal cleaning, disinfections items, and also water purifying tablets. That's why we have these two kinds of activities, and of course they are related. We are also creating harvesting systems, so water harvesting systems. So this is really important because we want people to use this water for domestic use, but also for having purified water in order to drink it. We know that in Maio the situation is critical. They don't have resources and they don't have purified water. So for us it was important to link our activities together. Then, of course, there is the hydrogeological situation. We know that water brings vectors. Vectors bring illnesses, and we know that people need information. We need to raise their awareness. We need to teach people. We need to strengthen their resilience and their resistance, and we want them to be able to face the problems in Maio. So that's why together with the Ministry of Health, we are implementing an health promotion campaign in order to spread good practice. Basic good practice saves lives, we say. And that's why we are also promoting an health promotion campaign in Yarmouk area. So the second kind of activities, they are basically we are creating a rainwater harvesting system. We are creating two kinds of system. One kind is for domestic use. We are covering the houses, and the second one is a collective system. I will show you in the next slides. This is you have here some picture of our intervention in Yarmouk. We are trying to cover 3,300 family needs with hygiene kit, with food baskets, and also with the health promotion campaign. And here you see our system. We try to follow also the CIMA suggestions. And so as you can see from the picture here, basically we are covering the houses with some plastic tarpaulin. Usually we target the more stable houses, of course, the one with mud, the one with bricks, and we try to exploit the typical slope of the roof in order to collect this water. And then thanks to a pipe system, the water is collected inside the tanks. Each house can have 2 tanks of 200 liters each, so 400 liters for each house. And this water can be used for domestic needs and also as I said before, thanks to the tablets we are giving them, they can also purify the water in order to have water to drink, drinkable water. So the other system is the collective one. Basically, is the same strategy, the same system, and it has the same aim. The only difference is, of course, that it's big. So we are targeting two buildings. The one is Al Yarmouk Center, and the other one is Ebadel Al Rahman School. They are in Mayo. Of course, also in this situation, the roof is covered with plastic. The plastic collects the water, and through a channel of pipes, the water is collected into a tank. The tank is a 10,000 tank liters. And of course, there is also a big filter and a pump in order to take the water out. The water can be used, of course, for the health center and for the school, but there will be also the possibility to collect the water for a collective use. So people can go there and collect the water in order to use it. Because we know that when focusing on a single house, all the neighbors will benefit from it, but also to have collective system in order to have the community to participate to it is really important. Also to create this sense of community that's really, really important. So our principles, especially for for the Mayo situation, but in general, we wanted this system to be really useful for the people. They have to be sustainable. The system covers the house, and in the meanwhile, they take the water, they collect the water. They are easy to fast to create and easy to maintain. The people don't have to make anything apart from maintain it, apart from care for it. And then, of course, we didn't want to increase the pollution in Mayo. We know that Mayo area is full of plastic and it's a huge problem. So thanks to this system, we reduce the plastic usage. Then we wanted this system to be easily to replicate. All the materials we are using are easily available in Sudanese market. They are easy to install and they are affordable. They are not so expensive. So apart from our intervention, people can also organize in order to recreate and replicate it. And of course, as my colleague said before, the third principle is the community participation. It's really, really important to involve people, especially in Mayo. They have to feel, they have to be part of something. They are not only the ultimate beneficiaries, but they are also a part of this project. That's why we are contacting and we are collaborating with the local communities, with the community leaders in order to involve them. They are helping us and they are conducting with us the distribution, the health promotion campaign. They are suggesting also the family needs, and they are also targeting with us and with our engineer the houses to be involved in the project. That's why. That's because we want them to be part of our plan. We are not giving them something, we are creating with them something, and it's really, really important for us. And then we have also a participation in fixing the damaged houses, and also in targeting the other location where to have all the sessions. So this is our project. Thank you so much for hosting us, and we hope to do better and better for Sudan and with Sudan, of course. Thank you.
Very good, Deborah. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot to the speakers. One thing is important. We didn't talk about COVID. I think in Sudan it's not really a big priority, but even exists. Tomorrow there will be a new webinar, in this case in particular regarding COVID, and at 12:30 the resilience of the African continent about COVID. That will be very, very interesting in the frame of the festival dello Sviluppo Sostenibile. Ambassador, what do you like to
First, I just like to thank AICS for hosting this event, and I'd like to ask everyone to tune in and contribute to this initiative. We thought it was important within the framework of the Festival for Sustainable Development to have a conversation about experience, because it is significant. It is significant of its linkage to the wider themes of sustainable development and climate change. It is significant because of the Italian approach, which links the short-term humanitarian response to the longer-term risk reduction, which goes a long way to promote development and sustainability, and especially the partnerships with not just we as Italian government, but the organizations of the civil society that are our partners that struck up here in Sudan, and that will be the basis of our joint work for a long time to come. So once again, thank you all very much for joining us.
Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you very much for inviting us, and thanks for organizing this event. It's really very interesting to hear about all these achievements, and I congratulate the team for all these achievements, and thank you very much for your efforts. I think we will talk a lot with the Italian Corporation about this project. I will do our best to support you, because I can see there are some issues where we can really integrate our efforts. One of them is ID. We have already distributed some food parcels in my area. We also have some other interventions. So we are very glad to collaborate with you and to work in resolving all the and also to continue working with this. I think it serves the agendas of the Sudan government. So thank you very much for inviting us, and we will work together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Have a nice afternoon.
Thank you all.
Bye.
I hope to see you soon in person. Bye.
Inshallah.
Shukran, masalama.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Thank you everybody.
Bye bye.
Assalamu.
Thank you so much. Goodbye.